few years ago, I traveled around southeast Louisiana to highlight some of the most interesting places in various zip codes. It was part of a series called Access Code. We traveled from Algiers to Hammond, Slidell to Metairie, and found some unusual, historic, and fun places to highlight. Here's a look at some of those stories. Venetian Isles is a neighborhood 25 minutes from downtown, right off Highway 90 on the western shore of the Chef Pass. Bayou Sauvage separates these waterfront homes from the bulk of the city, so while the neighborhood is still within New Orleans city limits, it seems like a world away.
It's like being at a resort, but you don't have to leave, you know. You got everything here, you know. You got boat access, fishing, crabbing, shrimping.
The neighborhood has been there for decades. There are more than 200 homes and nearly everyone is on a canal, just miles away from the lake of your choice.
If you go right up here, you hit Bayou Sauvage, and you go out Bayou Sauvage and you hit the Chef Pass. If you go to the left, then you're in Lake Pontchartrain. If you go to the right, then you're out into Lake Bourne, which leads out to the Mississippi Sound.
There's pros and cons to living in the Venetian Isles.
It's a little inconvenient. It's there's no schools, there's no grocery stores, stuff like that.
So we're in the garage and they've actually marked off the major hurricanes they've lived through. This was Isaac in 2012, the water got to here, and then Gustav in 2008. Hurricane Katrina, of course, is all the way up here. Now, the main floor of this house is actually 17.5 feet. So the water didn't get that far, but they did have a lot of damage. Residents who live here live by a saying.
It's nice when it's nice, but it's not nice when it's not nice. When you get a storm out here, you know, we're outside the levee district. I mean, just these last couple little storms that came by, we probably had 6 foot of water out here, and the water came up almost to my pool, and all the streets had, you know, 15, 16 inches of water in them. You couldn't get in and out the neighborhood. The highway was flooded, and that happens quite often.
Dean says it happened about 6 times last year, that it's just something you live with.
It's the price you pay for living in paradise, you know.
Where else can you do this? This egret's visit is a daily occurrence. There's also a blue heron that shows up, and this time of year, pelicans also stop by for some free food. Paradise's version of feeding the pigeons. Residents in the 70128 zip code say people have a perception about New Orleans East that's not necessarily true.
If you drive down the interstate, it's some of the houses on that interstate on both sides. It gives the impression that things are not as well as they should be.
We get a lot of publicity because of the negativity, but it is a great place to live.
This week we're exploring a side of New Orleans East some people may not be aware of. Dr. Monique Cook lives in Lake Barrington subdivision.
Some people are just amazed that we have a man-made lake in the back of our home. I've been here since 2002, and this was the main factor of me moving here. In the summer, we have neighbors with the paddle boats out and just enjoying the lake, having barbecues, backyard parties. It's just wonderful.
There are 8 man-made lakes in the area. Most are in the 70128 zip code. Roland Doucette lives in Lake Forest Estates. He built his house in 1999, and he actually helped dig one of the man-made lakes in a neighborhood nearby in the 70s while he was in the trucking business.
Nat Kiefer, he was responsible for all of these subdivisions out here. He had a vision, and that vision required lakefront properties.
Doucette is a retired policeman and enjoyed his view at the end of his shift.
It's the serenity of the quiet lake at night, especially at night. You know, you come home after a hard day's work when I was working, and it's just sitting in your den, just looking out over that lake, and it's a peace and calmness about it.
The lake communities are in close proximity and really make the area special.
The homes are gorgeous. New Orleans East is probably the best kept secret.
It's a hidden jewel. New Orleans East is a hidden jewel, you know, and I appreciate you guys coming out and doing some look at what we're doing, because it's really a great place to live, and we just have to change the perception.
And the 70128 zip code was once home to Lincoln Beach, which functioned from the 1930s to the 1960s. All that's left is the old sign that used to be in the parking lot, pointing across the street to the beach. During segregation, Lincoln Beach was a designated swimming area for blacks. Later, an amusement park was added. But in 1964, Pontchartrain Beach was desegregated, and because of that, Lincoln Beach declined and soon closed. Greg Vogel has lived all over New Orleans, renting in the Garden District, Broadmoor, Uptown, Mid-City, and Lakeview. But when it was time to buy, he chose Gentilly.
Realized that, for the same price, we could get a converted shotgun or maybe a double with hardly any parking. We were able to find this house, which is 2,900 square feet and in a beautiful neighborhood and 2 miles from the city park, 2 miles from the lake, and 3 miles from the French Quarter. So for us, it was everything we wanted.
Proximity to the city was a huge selling point for Vogel. Just a short commute for all downtown has to offer, including great dining, which is the only gripe Vogel seems to have with his home. I talked to residents, and many were in agreement that this area needs more food options outside of fast food, especially with 2 colleges in the zip code. Now, homegrown pizza is new, and there are some options, but many believe they shouldn't have to leave the neighborhood to eat.
There's restaurants, but they're just not the restaurants that you can eat at every single day. Fiorella's is more fried food. We got Sammy's Po' Boys for the fried food. It's all good, I love it, but it might be once a month, as opposed to looking for places that we can really enjoy on a regular basis.
District D Councilman Jared Brissett is aware that's a big concern for residents.
We are working with developers continuously to attract, because there are opportunities in those commercial outlets.
There are other exciting opportunities in the zip code. As the city's first resilience district, municipal government organizations are collaborating to invest more than $140 million into Gentilly to demonstrate groundbreaking pilot programs that address the area's stress drainage systems and sinking soils.
A multifaceted project that is going to improve the quality of life and beautification along in Gentilly as a whole.
From what I understand, they're going to extend the waterway from the lake down to Fillmore and creating a green space in between, which should be awesome. And then they're going to create a green path from Fillmore to Marabou. So it's going to be cool. I'm hoping it'll be like the Lafitte Greenway project that they did in Mid-City.
And that's only part of it. Vogel says there are so many ways this area is a more affordable choice to live in the city.
People are coming to Gentilly, and you're not even paying a flood insurance bill, except for very, very little. And the blight is just not there. You'll see every place that was once blighted is coming back.
And he says it's quiet and peaceful, with a good variety of people surrounding him and his family.
The neighbors have been great. We've got retirees, we've got doctors, we've got millennials. It's pretty much a mixed bag of people, and everybody's doing well here. So I think it's the next place to be.
Rnos is more than just legendary food and great service. It's a love story. Roland and Ora Molaire met when they were just kids, milking cows at the dairy Ora's family owned.
Mom and Dad were 10 years old when they met. They ran off with 10 silver dollars to go get married at 16 years old.
They were married for 68 years when Ora passed away in 2014. She was the backbone of the restaurant, the reason it came to be. She was a secretary, but for years she ran a bread delivery route in the mornings before work, saving over $4,000 to start a restaurant. Roland was a commercial fisherman and a carpenter.
And look at my mom and dad.
Rnos stands for Roland and Ora's, a dream that came to fruition.
When Mom and Dad used to have to milk them cows every morning, how tough and hard that was to do every day, 7 days a week, 24/7, and it gave them the desire and the will and the passion to actually keep this place going.
I'm the oldest, and then my brother Roland, my sister Carla,
and the baby. We got the baby.
This is the baby.
It was Roland and Ora's dying wishes that their 4 children, Cheryl, Roland Jr., Carla, and UJ, keep the restaurant going.
And we made a promise after my mother and father died that we were all going to stay together and work together. So
and get along.
If we trying, it's not easy.
But it is easy to keep customers happy with a menu full of favorites. When Rnos first opened in 1980, they started with 12 tables and served pizzas, Italian salad, and some Italian dishes. They're now in their third building, and the menu has grown with their own twist on South Louisiana classics like houseboat gumbo, the Rnos special, and their award-winning roast beef po' boy.
You have Rnos restaurant? That is the best roast beef I've ever had in my life. What else can you say?
Ora ran the politics of the restaurant and handled the money part. Roland oversaw day-to-day operations. This was Roland's chair. This is where he used to sit every single day. That way he could eye everything coming out of the kitchen. And he had just one rule. If you wouldn't eat it, don't serve it. Now Cheryl handles the majority of the office duties, and the other three siblings take shifts running the restaurant. Their roles can be interchangeable, and they're not afraid to roll up their sleeves and do what needs to be done to carry on the family legacy.
My brother and I make the dough. So we actually make the dough, we cut the dough, and actually roll the dough individual for each small, medium, and large pizzas.
Roland and Ora may be gone, but their memories are everywhere you look at Rnos.
And this is when Dad gave Mama a mink coat for Christmas one year.
From milking cows to mink coats, Rnos is an American success story, one that continues. In the 1950s, New Orleans was ahead of its time with Pontchartrain Park and the subdivision surrounding the public park.
No place in the United States was there ever a subdivision built for blacks that had a golf course, tennis courts, and a stadium. They weren't building that for blacks in the 50s. It wasn't happening, but that happened through the city of New Orleans.
The park was developed on the lakefront by the Park and Parkways Commission. Pontchartrain Park subdivision was developed by private investors. The 200-acre subdivision contained 1,000 2- and 3-bedroom homes.
Blacks wanted a place to be able to go and live and have nice homes. So that's how that development came about. The mayor at the time, though he was not necessarily a liberal mayor, but he understood the power of the vote. And there were a lot of blacks that could have voted.
With some city backing, Mayor Shep Morrison approached W. Hamilton Crawford along with some other investors. Crawford's company out of Baton Rouge built the subdivision, which was dedicated in 1955.
They had all sorts of artists and talented people and teachers and nurses and policemen and mayors and doctors.
Dr. Ernestine Bennett Johnson was a child when her family moved to Pontchartrain Park. Her father was a police officer and a teacher. Her mother was also an educator. They used her dad's VA benefits to purchase their first home. In the 1950s, this ditch is what they used to call the segregation line. On this side, Gentilly Woods, all white. On this side, Pontchartrain Park, all black. One line that used to divide a world of two.
We were kind of sort of maybe insulated during the 50s and the 60s because we had our own things going on and we had our own little parties and our own little affairs that we were able to do. So that kind of bonded us as a community.
Ernestine attended Cog Hill Elementary in her district. However, she would later become one of the students to desegregate Eleanor McMain, which was a junior high school in the 60s.
When I went there, my first semester, I was on the honor roll, which proved to me that the education I had gotten at Cog Hill was more than sufficient because I was on the honor roll. You know, and my mom kept that. I saw that like 30 years later, you know, how really proud I guess she was that I had gotten on the honor roll.
It's easy to see her upbringing in Pontchartrain Park really shaped Ernestine into the successful and responsible citizen she is today.
There was just a pride in the neighborhood which was really wonderful.
New Orleans Warehouse District used to be old, run-down warehouses on the wharf until the World's Fair came in 1984 and was hosted in the district. Lester Kabikoff was asked to organize the fair. His assistant, his son Press Kabikoff, had the assignment to assemble the 80 acres of warehouses and get control of the properties.
I went to Soho and north end of Boston and the NoHo area in New York and saw that they were taking warehouses and making them into homes. The big windows, the wood, the brick, and thought how cool.
So while assembling properties for the World's Fair, Press and his partner Ed Boatner decided to buy a warehouse and lease it to the World's Fair as a pavilion. So they bought the Federal Fiber Mills building. Press went to Montreal to look at the 1968 World's Fair as a blueprint. He added a beer garden to his building, a nightclub, and a Cajun dance hall.
To get a kickstart on our ultimate intention, which was to convert it to residential, pioneer in that area.
The World's Fair went south financially. At that time, the second oil shock hit the world. Fortunately, Press and Ed had a small bank involved to help with the finances.
Somehow we muscled it through. They got their sister bank from Dallas to come in and finance the conversion to apartments, and that's really kick-started the warehouse district.
Despite the fact that there were 30 to 40% vacancies throughout the city with rent at 40 cents a square foot, they were able to fill up fiber mills at 80-cent rent.
Ed and I looked at each other and said, we're on to something. There's a desire to live in towns, and we built HRI, which has now got 2,500 employees and done several $1 billion of renovation work around the country.
So there was a silver lining, despite the World's Fair being a flop financially.
Historical importance is we developed a neighborhood, and during that oil and gas recession in the late 80s, it was really the only thing that was happening in the city. And then it spread to the central business district where you are. It spread to Canal Street. It spread to the riverfront, and so we were able to participate in the building of one of the great downtowns in America.
The fair's Louisiana Pavilion turned into the first portion of the city's convention center in 1985, and after the fair, the land next to the convention center was redeveloped into the Riverwalk. Two big contributions. And Emeril Lagasse added a different element to the area when he branched out from Commander's Palace and opened his own restaurant in the warehouse district on Chapatula Street in March of 1990.
So having a name like Emeril certainly added to a district that had office, residential, and retail and restaurants. So those were all components that were attracted to that area once we broke the ice.
Since then, Emeril is not the only James Beard Award-winning restaurant in the warehouse district. There's Restaurant August, Pesh Seafood, Herb Saint, and Koshan. And the World War II Museum is also a huge draw. It's had 6.6 million visitors since opening back in 2000, with nearly 800,000 total attendees so far in 2018. At the heart of the warehouse district is Julia Street, also known as Gallery Row. The hotspot is lined with art gallery after art gallery on both sides of the street, highlighted by the Children's Museum located in the street's 400 block.
Chicken.
About 5 years ago, Jeanette Bell got lost in the lower Ninth Ward. It was an experience that actually inspired her.
It bothered me for 4 or 5 months. And I thought, but those people don't have access to fresh produce. Why aren't they utilizing that land?
So Bell decided to do something about it. A former floriculturalist for the city of Detroit, with the help of Habitat for Humanity and Hands on New Orleans, Bell now operates 5 gardens throughout the lower Ninth Ward, turning blighted lots into flourishing gardens, called Garden on Mars.
I love the smell of leek. Oh God, it smells so delicious.
She runs a beans and greens garden on North Miro Street, a flower garden on Charbonnet. There's also an herb garden on Charbonnet, a fruit garden on North Prier, and a market garden on North Galvez. The market garden is where she teaches 2 classes, starting with the kitchen box class, which centers around a raised bed with 32 square feet of planting area.
The other class is herb tasting.
Okay.
Because most people think they know what fresh herbs taste like, and they don't. This is French tarragon, which no one knows. And most people haven't actually tasted fennel. But when I remind them that it tastes like black licorice, then everyone wants to taste it.
Bell tends the gardens on a daily basis, but she relies on groups, mainly college students from across the country, to do the heavy lifting, thanks to the help of the volunteer arm of United Way.
For example, in March of this year, I had 8 groups from universities: San Bernardino, New York, Virginia, Indiana, Wisconsin, Alabama.
But the day she says changed the whole complexion of the process was in late 2014 when Ohio State was in town for a bowl game. The Buckeyes worked on the 2 Charbonnet gardens and were able to get so much accomplished in such a small amount of time.
When they show up and there's part of the band and there's the media, there's the mascot, and then there's the president, I knew at that point that I needed the involvement of a university.
The gardens have been set up primarily to support an urban agriculture curriculum.
We actually now have 5 gardens that would allow any instructor to put together a course outline and start teaching in the fall, literally.
There's plenty of options locally, but Bell is targeting Tulane. Here's why.
We have to go with a university that can attract students from across the country who would want to study urban agriculture in New Orleans.
Bell is a community partner with Tulane, which means some students do their community hours there and others are signed up for internships. But it's not enough. She says 1 instructor and 1 full-time maintenance worker to run the gardens would bring her goal to fruition. So what started as a wrong turn has changed Bell's direction, and the community is better. In November of 2011, Rouse's opened its doors on Barone Street. It marked the first time in 50 years a full-service supermarket opened in downtown New Orleans. Former council member Stacey Head explains it all started with the Downtown Development District.
They would do study after study saying we need a grocery store, and then they would go out, the people who were with the DDE, and shop the grocery stores and tell the grocers why they should invest.
Even with the studies, there was no evidence a supermarket could sustain downtown.
The DDD would do the studies and show how we're almost there, or we're going to be there next year. And then Rouse's took a risk because we weren't at that point, even according to our studies, which I suspect were bullish.
The risk paid off. The store was successful, and more people were willing to move downtown with the convenience of being able to shop in their own neighborhood. And with more residents came more businesses. Now the area, which is now considered part of the South Market District, is booming. Head also credits Domain Properties.
Tulane graduates who came to New Orleans for graduate school and decided to figure out, I guess, the model for mixed income housing, and after Katrina just lit the world on fire. I think they're great because they're that live-work concept where you have the retail and offices downstairs, and then you have the residences above, so you don't have to have a car if you live downtown.
It's amazing to see the growth less than 7 years later. It was stepping stones, starting with Rouse's. From where I'm standing, Rouse's is a couple blocks this way. Revitalized O.C. Haley Boulevard, a couple blocks this way. What they need is for something to fill the void in the area that connects the two right here. And there's actually a proposal for an arts walk. Now, the Arts Walk initiative isn't a done deal. It's actually spearheaded by the Besthoff family, a coalition of over 15 organizations, individuals, and government entities dedicated to celebrating the arts. And it would also increase foot traffic, which would in turn enhance safety, which is exactly what the